Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest questions there is when it comes to personal growth. All right, let's get right into it. Are experts born or are they made? So many of us, we look at a brilliant musician or some master craftsman and we just think, wow, they were born with it. But the science, the evidence, it tells a totally different story. Have you ever said something like this to yourself? If you have, you've run smack into the single biggest roadblock to learning anything new. It's this myth of innate talent, the idea that you either have it or you don't. And honestly, it's probably the most damaging idea in all of personal development. So let's break down this myth of genius. This whole idea feeds into what the brilliant researcher Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset. And it's exactly what it sounds like. The belief that our abilities, how smart we are, how creative, how athletic, all of that is basically set in stone from the day we're born. And here's the real kicker. This mindset stops us before we even start. I mean, why would you even bother taking an art class if you're already convinced you can't draw? We get so terrified that feeling will just confirm our worst fears, that we aren't smart enough or talented enough or just plain good enough, that we don't even take that first step. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, but what if that whole belief system is just wrong? What if there's another way? Well, there is. The key to unlocking all that potential you have is a simple but incredibly powerful shift in how you see things. It's about adopting a growth mindset.
And this is a tale of two mindsets, really. It completely reframes how you look at everything. Someone with a fixed mindset, they see a tough challenge and think, oh no, this is a threat. I could fail, I could be embarrassed. But someone with a growth mindset, they see that exact same challenge and think, awesome, this is an opportunity, a chance for me to learn and get better. So what does a person with a growth mindset know? They get that trying and failing is just part of the process, that practice is way more important than raw talent, that you don't have to have all the answers to get started. You're always a beginner in some way, which means you can always grow. Effort is what really counts, and this is the critical shift right here. Failure gets completely reframed. It's not the end of the road anymore. It's the engine of learning. It's the difference between saying, I'm not good at this, and adding one tiny, powerful word, yet. It all boils down to this. Your attitude is so much more important than your IQ. The crucial takeaway here is that if you truly believe you can get better through effort, you open up a world of possibilities. If you believe you can learn it, chances are you actually can. And get this. This isn't just some feel-good psychology. It's actual biology. Your brain is like a muscle. It's not some static thing you're stuck with. It physically changes as you learn. I'm not speaking in metaphors here. This is a hardwired neurological fact. It comes down to a substance called myelin. Think of it like the plastic insulation on an electrical wire. This fatty tissue wraps around your brain's neurons, and the more you practice something, the more myelin you build up. This makes the signals, your thoughts, travel faster and stronger. It's why brain scans of expert musicians show way more myelin in the parts of the brain that control their hands. More practice builds more myelin, which literally creates a faster, more efficient brain. So, just like any other muscle, your brain has optimal conditions for growth. If you want to build a stronger, faster brain, you have to start treating it like an athlete treats their body. Seriously, your brain is a physical organ. It gets tired, it needs the right fuel, and it's not going to perform at its best if you don't take care of it. And that means focusing on 3 keys to brain health: managing stress, prioritizing sleep, and getting regular exercise. And look, these aren't just fluffy wellness tips. They have a direct, measurable impact on your brain's ability to learn. Chronic stress? It can literally shrink the part of your brain responsible for memory. Sleep? That's prime time for your brain to file away everything you learned that day. And exercise? It releases a protein that actually helps grow new brain cells. It's all connected. Okay, so once you've got the right mindset and you're taking care of your brain, you're ready for the fun stuff, the toolkit. Let's talk about 3 pro learning hacks that will seriously accelerate your learning and make your study time way more effective.
So, the Learning Toolkit has 3 main parts: spaced repetition, retrieval practice, and the 80-20 rule. And the whole idea here is to learn smarter, not just harder. Let's break down that first one.
First up, spaced repetition. Forget cramming for 20 hours over a weekend. It's all about studying for maybe 1 hour a day. See, our brains are actually designed to forget stuff. It's a feature, not a bug. Spaced repetition works with that fact, not against it. Reviewing something frequently over a longer period is so much more effective than cramming it all into one long session. Seeing something 10 times over a week will beat seeing it 20 times in one day every time.
Next up is retrieval practice. And this is a big one. Learning isn't about passively putting information in your head. It's about actively pulling information out. Just rereading your notes, that gives you this false sense of, oh yeah, I know this. But real learning happens when you force your brain to retrieve the info. That little struggle is what makes the memory stick. It's exactly why things like flashcards are so powerful. And finally, let's talk about the 80-20 rule. This is the secret to getting massive results with the least amount of effort. It's also known as the Pareto principle or the law of the vital few.
So the 80-20 rule basically states that 80% of your results will come from just 20% of your effort. When it comes to learning, this is a game changer. It means that a small handful of core concepts will usually give you most of the practical understanding you need. So instead of trying to boil the ocean and learn everything at once, your job is to figure out what that vital 20% is and master it.
And here's a perfect example. Learning a new language. You absolutely do not need to memorize a 50,000-word dictionary. It turns out that focusing on just the 1,000 most common words, which is a tiny, tiny fraction of the whole language, gives you about 80% of what you need to actually hold a conversation. Now that is learning strategically. Okay, so we've covered the mindset, the brain science, and the tools. But what does it really mean to think like a true expert? What separates the best from the rest? Well, here's a secret. It's not about reaching some finish line where you know everything.
You know, true experts, the real masters in any field, the first thing they accept is that they will never stop learning. An expert never stops wanting to fill in the gaps in their knowledge. It isn't about knowing it all. It's about fully embracing the fact that you don't know it all, and you never will. It's about being hungry for more.
What this really means is you have to cultivate a beginner's mindset. You need a relentless intellectual curiosity. Even when you're an expert in a field, you approach things with openness, with eagerness, without any preconceived notions. You have to assume there's always another layer to peel back, and you're excited to find it.
And this mindset is perfectly captured by the Japanese principle of Kaizen. It means small, continuous improvement. So instead of making these huge, overwhelming changes that lead to burnout, the real path to mastery is about getting just 1% better every single day. And those tiny improvements, they compound over time into something absolutely remarkable.
So that brings us to the final question. What's the 1% you can improve today? Because at the end of the day, expertise isn't some destination you arrive at. It's a journey you choose to be on. And that journey doesn't start tomorrow with some big grand plan. It starts right now with one small choice. So, what's it going to be?